Mr. President, there was something else that's going on the domestic front I'd like to enter into the record and ask unanimous consent. They be placed in a separate part.
Without objection.
Mr. President, each of us kind of defines our career in Congress, what's important to us. And when I came to the House of Representatives, I had little planning behind the decision to take after the tobacco companies. My family was touched by tobacco death, as so many families are. I lost my father when I was a sophomore in high school. I was 14 years old. He was 53. He died from lung cancer. 2 packs of Campbell's a day did it to him. And I decided in the House of Representatives I would start to take what action I could to stop the tobacco companies and their deadly march across America. And so one of the things I did was to ban smoking on airplanes, put the law into effect, and it's changed dramatically, not just air travel, but life in America. I had no idea that that was a tipping point. And once we banned smoking on airplanes, people would say, well, why didn't you include schools, or office buildings, or hospitals, or veterans facilities, or buses, or trains? And the dominoes kept falling. And now it is peculiar, it is strange, should someone walk into a room and light up a cigarette. It just doesn't happen. So that much was done. But the tobacco companies didn't stop, even after they were proven to be liars under oath before the United States House of Representatives when they were asked whether or not tobacco caused cancer. My new cause, again against the tobacco companies, relates to e-cigarettes and vaping. Mr. President, it's been 6 months. 6 months, that's how long past a court-ordered deadline for the Food and Drug Administration to finish its public health review of e-cigarettes. 6 months. As an attorney, if my client were 6 months late in meeting a court order, there would be major consequences. But for the FDA, it appears to be business as usual. Mind you, this is not some bureaucratic squabble. The issue at stake is whether or not the Food and Drug Administration will do its job to prevent children in America from getting hooked on e-cigarettes that are being peddled by big tobacco companies in violation of the law. You see, the Tobacco Control Act, law of the land, requires that tobacco products be reviewed by the FDA before they can even be sold. The law says tobacco companies must prove to the FDA their product is, quote, appropriate for the protection of public health. They can't meet that standard. Everyone knows it. If they don't meet it, they're not supposed to be sold in the United States, period. That's the law. But instead of doing its job, the FDA turned a blind eye for years at e-cigarettes and vaping, many funded by the largest cigarette corporations like R.J. Reynolds and Altria. Those companies flooded the market with flavored e-cigarettes meant to hook our kids. The result, millions of children became addicted to e-cigarettes. Big tobacco intentionally targeted children with trendy advertisements and fruit or candy-flavored nicotine products. These actions and FDA's failure to regulate e-cigarettes were a flagrant violation of existing law. So in 2019, a federal judge stepped in and called the agency out for its abdication of responsibility. The judge found that the Food and Drug Administration, quote, decided not to enforce the pre-market review provisions at all, end of quote. So the federal court gave the FDA a deadline. Listen carefully. It required the FDA to complete its review of the legality of all e-cigarettes being sold in the United States by September the 9th, 2021. When that deadline arrived 6 months ago, FDA announced that it denied millions of applications for e-cigarettes that had no business on the market. That was important and long overdue. However, a new trend emerged. Vaping companies, including many whose products had been denied by the FDA, were attempting to circumvent the law by reinventing their products. Many e-cigarette companies tried to use so-called synthetic nicotine. We know nicotine. It's the habit-forming drug that is included in tobacco cigarettes. So they decided that if they made nicotine not out of tobacco, but out of other chemicals, they would escape the reach of the law. The day after the FDA ordered Texas-based Vapor Salon to remove its products from the market, the company announced, quote, Vapor Salon is switching to tobacco-free nicotine. The main purpose of this is to be outside of the FDA regulation. They were very bold about it. They wanted to hook our kids with synthetic nicotine and were arguing the government couldn't stop them. The e-cigarette is one of the most popular with children. One of their products is known as Puff Bar. It uses synthetic nicotine to escape the reach of the FDA. They peddle these addictive cigarettes to our kids in flavors not designed for any adults. Listen to the flavors: blue raz, lemon ice, watermelon. FDA is asleep at the wheel, but Congress recognized this problem recently and did something about it. The fiscal year 2022 omnibus bill that passed last week contains a bipartisan provision I worked on with Senators Collins and Murray. Our policy closes the synthetic nicotine loophole. When President Biden signs that law today, we are going to see this law go into effect and clarify the FDA has the authority to regulate synthetic nicotine products and to keep those e-cigarettes off the market. Congress is saying clearly that we will not allow predatory vaping companies to target kids for profit. Now it's the FDA's duty to do the same. I recently voted for the new director, Mr. Califf. Dr. Califf, and I said to him, I'm going to watch you, and I'm going to be on you like a hawk. You have a federal legal responsibility to stop these e-cigarettes from being sold to our kids. Don't waste time. I hope he doesn't. I hope the FDA will use the new authority. Juul and Puff Bar are two companies most responsible for fueling the youth vaping epidemic. They continue to be sold despite court-ordered deadlines and despite the fact that they use these kid-friendly flavors and tactics. So why has the FDA not removed them? Why are more teens and even preteens still getting hooked on e-cigarettes? FDA has the authority to clear all unauthorized e-cigarettes from the market and force their sellers to prove that their products, it's their legal responsibility to prove their products are appropriate for the protection of public health. Good luck. They're not going to be able to do that, and we know it. Last week, I led a bipartisan letter with Senator Romney, Republican of Utah, 13 other senators, saying to the FDA, do three things. Finish the review of e-cigarettes immediately. Reject the applications for e-cigarettes, especially kid-friendly flavors. And three, clear the market of all unapproved e-cigarettes. Last month, when the Senate approved Dr. Califf, I made it clear that I wanted to treat this matter as an urgent requirement and to clear the backlog. Congress has now given him every tool he needs. Today marks 1 month of his tenure as commissioner. Will he keep his word to me and so many others to protect kids from a lifetime of addiction? It's time for FDA to do its job and protect America's kids from big tobacco and their candy-flavored, sickness-causing e-cigarettes. Mr. President, I yield the floor.